Hello, today I will talk about some challenges related to piloting a drone. I'll try to explain why sometimes it's really difficult to learn flying a drone. I'd like to start first of all with some cognitive dependencies that we have. Most of all, I think, play with some RC toys like cars, and usually they have a standard control. And let me show you this one, for example. This is a remote control that would control an RC boat or an RC car, and you will see here two sticks, and one stick on the left usually would be used to move your RC toy forward and backward, and then the stick on the right side would be used to turn your RC toy to the right or to the left. So we're used to playing with these kind of toys with this remote control. When we come to the drones, the way the sticks work differs. That's where the problem comes. You are used to use the stick to move it forward and backwards, and then when you move it up here, you will have your drone going up, and then when you move the stick down, it will land, and then when you move the stick to the right, it will start turning around its axis to the right. And when you move your stick to the left, it will start turning around its axis to the left. And then to move your drone forward, you would use this stick. And by this movement, it will go forward. And then by this movement, it will go backwards. So in order to be able to use this remote control like a regular RC toy remote control, you already have to get used to a reverse position of sticks. And if you want to move your drone in the air at the same altitude as if you were moving your RC car, you would have to get used to this stick moving forward to go forward, and then at the same time move this to the right to make this kind of a movement like with an RC car. So that's one challenge, and you need to get used to that. Then you get another dimension here, which is not present in regular RC toys. If you move this stick to the right, the drone would move sideways to the right. If you move this stick to the left, the drone would move sideways to the left. And this is something new that you're not used to. So that's the second challenge. So also here you have two functions, and here you get four functions, and let's say 4 dimensions. The first two dimensions are like in a regular toy, going forward, backwards, and rotating to the right and to the left. But then 2 extra dimensions would be going up and going down, and going sideways to the right and to the left. So how do we deal with this? What I advise usually is to start using a headless mode in the beginning to understand how the drone rotates around its axis and how it affects the way it flies. When you don't use a headless mode and try to fly a drone, you get confused. And this happens is because you're used to moving this stick to the right and to the left, and you expect the drone to go to the right and to the left. But once you move the stick to the right and to the left, the drone starts to move around its axis. Once the drone changes the angle when it moves around its axis, you get confused because you want to move the drone to the right, let's say to the sideways to the right, but the drone suddenly goes to the left, because when you move the stick, the drone is not going this way. The drone is going to the right, sideways, so if it changes position around its axis, it goes this way. So your brain gets confused, because when you move the stick to the right, the drone goes to the left. That's where the headless mode helps to understand or to get used to the drone. When you turn on the headless mode, what happens? The drone is not affected by the movements around its axis. You can move the drone around its axis, but the stick will still move the drone forward, backward, to the right and to the left. Even if the drone changes the position this way, when you move the stick to the right, it will go to the right. There will be a special algorithm that will calculate the position of the drone around its axis and will make the drone move to the right independently from the rotation around its axis. This way you'll have more control over the drone and will get used to the drone. So let's say you move your drone around the axis. Push the stick to the right, it will rotate to the right, and then you'll push the stick to the right, it will go to the right. Without the headless mode, what would happen? You would rotate this drone to the right, it will change position like this, and then you try to move your drone to the right, it will go to the left. But according to the drone, it still goes to the right when you push the stick to the right. After you get used flying your drone in the headless mode, switch to the regular mode and try to start flying your drone as if you were using an RC car. But just keep in mind that this stick would be responsible for moving your drone forward and backwards, and this stick would be responsible for moving your drone to the right and to the left as if it were a car. Just imagine that this stick would move the wheels of a car to the right and to the left, so the drone would go like this to the right and like this to the left. It won't go sideways. So try to practice with these two functions, moving the drone forward and rotating the drone around its axis to the right and to the left, and fly in circles. After you practice that, try to use only this stick and move the drone sideways to the right and to the left while moving, let's say, forward. This function is good to avoid obstacles. For example, when you fly forward and you see a tree, you can move the drone sideways without changing the direction of the drone. Let's say here you have a tree, you're moving forward, you move this stick to the right, it will just fly this way. If you move the stick to the left, it will just go like this and will continue moving forward. So you can move like this without changing the direction of the drone. While if you use the left stick trying to move the drone to the right, it would rotate around its axis and would change its direction. When flying in front of the tree, it would go this way or this way, and then you have to rotate it back, and then it will be more difficult to go back to its original direction. But this stick helps you to move the drone like this. Once you get used to these 3 dimensions, going forward and backwards, rotating the drone around its axis to the right and to the left, and moving the drone sideways to the right and to the left, try to add the altitude at this point. Try to change altitude while flying, and then there's an interesting movement to turn your drone to the right and to the left without losing much control of the drone. It's just moving both sticks to the right or to the left. At this point you would move the drone with this stick around its axis and at the same time to the right side, which would make this kind of a movement. So you would rotate the drone and at the same time move it sideways. So it would quickly change the direction. And I should say that when there's wind, this kind of a combination helps to move the drone quickly in a different direction. When you fly forward and just use this kind of rotation around its axis, the wind may still take it away, but if you add a sideways movement, then it rotates better. What happens if you're flying in a regular mode and you get confused? Sometimes it happens, you lose orientation. You kind of start panicking when you see that you lose control of your drone. It may happen when your drone goes a bit far away from you, you don't see its front end, and you move the sticks and the drone goes in a weird way and you start panicking. That happens. What to do in this case? In this case, you need to have your app connected to the drone and have your drone passing the images to your app. So if you're new, always have your app on with the image coming to your phone. This way you will see in which direction your drone is looking, and this way you will be able to bring the drone into position from which you would be able to start controlling it again. Let's say if you see the front end of the drone and you again lost orientation, you can't control it, something goes wrong, you push the sticks in one direction, the drone goes in the other direction. This may happen when there is wind. In this case, you need to place your remote control in the position similar with your drone. For example, if you look in this direction, the drone should look in this direction, because when you fly it up, you will know that the stick will correspond with the same movements with your drone. So you fly it up, you move the drone like this, you know that the drone will go this way. It will correspond with the movements of your stick. But then what happens if the drone moves a little bit this way? You move the joystick this way, it goes this way. You move the stick this way, it goes this way. Once it gets into this position, you move the stick this way, it goes towards you. And if the drone is close to you, sometimes it goes at you, you get scared, you start panicking, you don't know what to do. Believe me, it looks simple, but it happens. So what you do in this case? To start controlling your drone again, move your body or your hands so that the remote control is placed in the similar position with your drone. Then you will again be able to control it, because you will feel that your position is the same with the position of your drone. So when you move this stick to the right, it will go to the right. To the left, it will go to the left. Forward, it will go forward. If your drone goes this way, move your body like this and turn your head towards the drone, but have your remote control in this position so that you can again bring the drone back. If you are in front of the drone, the wind takes it away from you, and you would stand here with your back looking at the drone, moving your head to the drone. You would push the stick forward, the drone would go forward until it reaches you, then it will pass you, and then imagine I'm here, the drone would come here, and your body again with your head would be looking at the drone. You will be in the right position, and you will be able to again control the drone correctly. This happens if you're new. So you're kind of returning to your initial position like this, and you start moving it.